What's good, YouTube? Sensational Sinceres here, and I'm back with another Tom Clancy's The Division Vendor Reset video. We're here for February 28th, 2020's Vendor Reset. So let's get right into this and see what we got good for this week. Okay, so for our first gear items, we're going to head over to Camp Hudson. Here, the weapons vendor has an MG5 with a gear score of 264. It has 21% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents it has is Adept, Vicious, and Destructive. For our next gear items, we're still at Camp Hudson, and the gear vendor here has a prototype electronics mod with 267 electronics and 4% signature ability resource gain if you like this type of mod. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the meat locker. Here, the weapons vendor has a SRSA-1 with a gear score of 274. It has 156% headshot damage, and the talents it has is Disciplined, Prepared, and Vicious. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the base operations. Here, the weapons vendor has an M249B with a gear score of 269. It has 20% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents it has is Talented, Ferocious, and Unforgiven. Also here, we got an extended magazine with 116.50% magazine size, 4% crit hit damage, and 4.50% reload speed. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the advanced weaponry vendor, and we got a classic FAL if you like this weapon. It has a gear score of 274. It has 23% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is Prepared, Brutal, and Responsive. Also here we got a military RPK-74M with a gear score of 284. It has 22% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents it has is Self-Preserved, Ferocious, and Deadly. Also here we got a heavy magazine spring with 12% magazine size, 4% crit hit damage, and 10.40% rate of fire. Also here we have a C79 scope with 17% crit hit damage, 6% headshot damage, and 2% accuracy. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the special equipment vendor, and here we got a Liberator with a gear score of 272. It has 20% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is Competent, Destructive, and Vicious. Also here we got a Cassidy with a gear score of 264. It has 341.50% stagger, and the talents it has is Trained, Fierce, and Boomstick. Also here we got a military AK-47M with a gear score of 259. It has 20% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is Responsive, Adept, and Capable. Also here we got a military RPK-74M with a gear score of 262. It has 19% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents it has is Prepared, Swift, and Brutal. Also here we got a Spec Ops mask with the talent Enduring on there. It has a gear score of 260. It has 894 armor. Its roll for electronics 1,133. And the attributes it has is crit hit chance and burn resistance. Also here we got a prototype performance mod with 3.50% mobile cover damage resilience. And also here we got a VX1 scope with 17.50% headshot damage, 2.50% stability, and 4% crit hit damage. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the Cavern. Here the gear vendor has a prototype stamina mod with 213 stamina and 3% damage to elites. I know people are looking out for these. And then also here we got a prototype firearms mod with 262 firearms and 2,861 skill power. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Kerman Station. Here the weapons vendor has the Omega Rifle Suppressor with 17% headshot damage, 2% accuracy, and 2.50% crit hit chance. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Camp Clinton. Here the special equipment vendor has a Pecan with a gear score of 272. It has 19% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents it has is Self-Preserved and Unforgiven and Pecan. Also here we got a Historian with a gear score of 262. It has 156% headshot damage, and the talents it has is Deadly, Meticulous, and Historian Repeats. Also here we got a Converted USC with a gear score of 263. It has 20.50% crit hit chance, and the talents it has is Unforgiven, Dominant, and Ambusher. Also here we got a lightweight M4 with a gear score of 264. It has 21% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is Competent, Intense, and Swift. It's not really a good roll, but I figured I'd mention it. Also here we got a Marine Super 90 with a gear score of 272. It has 312% stagger, and the talents it has is Vicious, Ferocious, and Sustain. Also here we got an Operator mask with the talent refreshed on there. It has a gear score of 270. It has 977 armor. Its roll for firearms 1,159, and the attributes it has is Health on Kill and Blind Death Resistance. Also here we got a Spec Ops pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 272. The armor is 1,270. Its roll for stamina 1,154. And attributes it has is health and disrupt resistance. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Dante's Run. Here the gear vendor has a tactical pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 263. The armor is 1,209. Its roll for stamina 1,122. And the attributes that we have here is health and ammo capacity. Also here we got a prototype performance mod with 5.50% first aid self-heal. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Wolf's Den. Here the weapons vendor has an extended magazine with 110% magazine size, 2.50% crit hit chance, and 5.40% rate of fire. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Autumn's Hope. Here the gear vendor has a prototype firearms mod with 262 firearms and 3% skill haste. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Madison's Stand. Here the gear vendor has a tactical pack with the talent Specialized on there. It has a gear score of 269. The armor is 1,308. Its roll for electronics 1,114. And the attributes we got here is skill power and disrupt resistance. And also here I mentioned this because I'm here. We got a prototype performance mod with 7.50% mobile cover health. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the Last Call. Here the weapons vendor has a Navy MP5N with a gear score of 271. It has 22.50% crit hit chance, and the talents it has is self-preserve, destructive, and ferocious. Also here we got an SR7 suppressor with 18% crit hit damage, 2.50% stability, and 2% accuracy. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the Southpaw. Here the gear vendor has a prototype performance mod with 3.50% sticky bomb damage. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the Grindhouse. Here the weapons vendor has a military P416 with a gear score of 258. It has 18% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is fierce, focused, and prepared. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the Firewall. Here the gear vendor has a Spec Ops armor with the talent Vigorous on there. It has a gear score of 266. The armor is 1,730. Its roll for electronics 1,242. And attributes it has is health, skill haste, and ammo capacity. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 31st Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a prototype firearms mod with 266 firearms and 3,177 health. And then also here we got an extended magazine with 109.50% magazine size, 2.50% crit hit chance, and 5.10% rate of fire. For our next gear items, you want to head to West 39th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an SASG-12 with a gear score of 279. It has 307% stagger, and the talents it has is fierce, deadly, and capable. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 46th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a small grip with 18% crit hit damage, 2.50% stability, and 5% reload speed. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 53rd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a prototype performance mod with 5% sticky bomb explosion radius. For our next gear items, you want to head over to East 61st Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone weapon mod vendor has a Omega rifle suppressor with 17% headshot damage, 3% crit hit chance, and 5% optimal range. And then also here we got a BX1 scope with 17% headshot damage, 2% accuracy, and 2.50% stability. For our next gear items, you want to head to East 58th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has a operator mask with the talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 278. The armor is 974. Its roll for firearms 1,192. And the attributes it has is crit hit chance and damage to elites. And also here we got a Spec Ops armor with the talent Vigorous on there. It has a gear score of 272. The armor is 1,804. Its roll for electronics 1,213. And the attributes we got here is health on kill, skill haste, and increased kill XP. For our next gear items, we head over to the Park Ave checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone weapons vendor has a black market RPK-74E with a gear score of 277. It has 19% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents it has is fierce, prepared, and meticulous. For our next gear items, we head over to East 53rd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an enhanced ACRE with a gear score of 270. It has 19% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is fierce, adept, and vicious. Also here we got a tactical mask with the talent enduring on there. It has a gear score of 273. It has 940 armor. Its roll for electronics 1166, and attributes it has is exotic damage resilience and blind death resistance. For our next gear items, we're going to head to East 46th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a Spec Ops armor with the talent Reckless on there. It has a gear score of 273. The armor is 1865. Its roll for stamina 1233. And the attributes we got here is health on kill, skill haste, and ammo capacity. And also here we got a Tyrant suppressor with 7% crit hit chance, 4.50% optimal range, and 2.50% stability. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 42nd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a gunslinger vest with the talent Rapid on there. It has a gear score of 269. The armor is 1852. Its roll for firearms 1183. And the attributes we got is skill haste, health on kill, and increased kill XP. And then also here we got a prototype electronics mod with 259 electronics and 2,949 skill power. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to East 40th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an operator mask with the talent Enduring on there. It has a gear score of 275. It has 989 armor. Its roll for electronics 1137. And the attributes we got here is crit hit chance and blind death resistance. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to East 34th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an operator pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 278. The armor is 1311. Its roll for electronics 1241. And the attributes we got is skill power and burn resistance. And also here we got a prototype performance mod with 2% pulse crit hit chance. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to the 5th Ave checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a tactical pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 274. The armor is 1216. Its roll for firearms 1220. And the attributes it got is health and ammo capacity. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ2 Safe Room. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has an operator vest with the talent Vigorous on there. It has a gear score of 278. It has 1966 armor. Its roll for electronics 1201. And the attributes we got is health, skill haste, and increased kill XP. Also here we got an operator pack with the talent Specialized on there. It has a gear score of 266. The armor is 1162. Its roll for electronics 1157. And the attributes we got on this is stability and burn resistance. Also here we got some operator gloves with the talent Savaged on there. It has a gear score of 273. The armor is 952. Its roll for firearms 1217. And the attributes we got here is crit hit chance, SMG damage, and health on kill. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ3 Safe Room. Here the Dark Zone weapons vendor has a custom M870 MCS with a gear score of 262. It has 306.50% stagger. And the talents we got on this is competent, trained, and fierce. And then also here we got a MG5 with a gear score of 275. It has 19% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents we got here is deadly, vicious, and prepared. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ4 Safe Room. Here the Dark Zone gear mod vendor has a prototype firearms mod with 247 firearms. I know it's kind of low, but it has 1% created chance. I figured I'd mention it. And then also here we got a prototype performance mod with 7% Seeker Mine explosion radius. For our next gear items, you want to head over to DZ5 Safe Room. Here the Dark Zone weapon mod vendor has a heavy magazine spring with 4% crit hit damage, 12% magazine size, and 9.40% rate of fire. And then also here we got a rugged mini reflex sight with 7% crit hit chance, 2.50% stability, and 2% accuracy. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to DZ9 Safe Room. Here the Dark Zone weapon mod vendor has a heavy magazine spring with 4.50% reload speed, 11% magazine size, and 11% rate of fire. Alright everybody, that's it for our Tom Clancy's The Division vendor reset video for February 28, 2020's vendor reset. I hope everybody who tuned into it found something that they needed. If you hadn't smashed that like button, and if you hadn't subbed to the channel, I appreciate you subbing to that channel, showing some support. That's good looking out. And I will see y'all with the next one, everybody. Take care. Peace.